Good morning, Chad.
Morning, Orlando.
How you doing? Good to
I'm
see you,
doing
man.
great,
Thanks for
man.
coming in early this morning.
Yeah, blessed to be here.
So you want to introduce yourself so our viewers can know who you are and what company you come from?
Thank you for having me. My name's Chad McElhaney. I work with solar negotiators and solar maintenance pros.
Okay.
I'm the director of dealer services over there. So I oversee all of our outside sales teams and our dealer networks.
Okay.
And I own a lot over there. Put my hands on a lot of different projects, and throughout the project I kind of facilitate it going all the way through in a lot of ways.
Right, and in full transparency, that's kind of how we met, right?
Yeah.
Because Stellar Solar is a dealership, and we've actually come over and we're doing business together.
Yep.
So I want to make sure everybody understands that and knows that, right?
Yeah, full disclosure.
Yeah, full disclosure. So, I can tell you a million reasons why we love being with Solar Maintenance Pros, and I'm just for people to understand, I'm going to say S&P because it just makes it short and easy.
We all call it that.
But tell me what sets you apart and why other dealers should definitely take a look at what you do there.
Yeah, so ultimately, a couple things set us apart. I would say when you're looking for a brand to represent as far as a dealer perspective, it's really good to be aligned in core values. And one way to look at that is look at a company's longevity. So one reason that a lot of customers go with us is that we've been in business for 15 years now, which, as you know, in the solar industry is pretty much a dinosaur.
Right.
So many companies have come up and popped up in the last 8 years. They don't have the proven track record like we do. And, they leave just as quickly.
Okay.
We can maybe hit on that in a little bit, but there are a lot of companies that come into the space, and recently things have changed with PG&E and the utility companies, and it's basically gone away with the old way of doing solar, which was fairly simple.
Right.
It's a little bit more complex of a process, and you need to really work with somebody and a company that understands what they're doing.
Right.
I think another thing that speaks to a company is reviews. And so with our company, between Solar Negotiators, if you Google that, and Solar Maintenance Pros, we have roughly 2,000 reviews with an average of 4.9 stars. So that's after 15 years in business. Solar Maintenance Pros and Solar Negotiators is one company, but on Google we kind of divide the two entities for reasons like Solar Maintenance Pros works on systems and is the install branch, and Solar Negotiators is more of our marketing and sales branch.
Part.
Yeah. So I think those two components together is working with a company that has longevity and working with a company that gets good reviews. You know as well as I do, a customer that has a bad experience is likely to leave a review.
Yes.
Customers that have good experiences almost never leave reviews, and customers that have phenomenal experiences will likely leave a review.
Yeah.
I think that kind of speaks to the company. You can only hide for so long before your Google rating starts dropping below 4s or the low 4s. And that's not a good place to be because you're usually weighted down by a lot of 1 stars. For us, we take very seriously the customer experience. And, it's not that we've never received a 1-star review, but when we do, we try as hard as we can to make it right with that customer. And they have the opportunity to change that review, whether it be to a 3-star, 4 or 5, maybe a 2.
Yeah.
But we typically will fix that review, and we've gotten a lot of 5-star reviews moved from a 1 to a 5 whenever we ran into any issues. So I think that kind of speaks to the company. I like to relate it to if like someone goes to a dentist, because everybody has gone to a dentist, hopefully. If you have a good experience with your dentist, you're very unlikely to leave a good review. It's just a normal day. You walk in, get your teeth cleaned. You have an operation, it goes well, you expect it. But the second that your root canal turns into a terrible root canal and you're out for months and now you've got a tooth problem, that's usually when the bad review comes, and most people will jump at that opportunity.
Right.
So the fact that we have about 2,000 5-star reviews from customers that are our customers, they're not just purchased reviews that some companies may do, it speaks a lot to the character of the company, I believe.
So let me toot your horn a little bit. That is what I feel we have a great working relationship.
Yeah.
Because our number one goal, a lot of companies say they're customer first focused, right? However, when things go wrong, do you answer your phone?
Yeah.
Right? When you look at your phone and you go, oh, do I really want to answer this, right? We answer it.
Yeah.
And we take care of it. We are together. We're in the construction business. Things happen. People make mistakes, and that's normal, right? The question is, if a mistake is made, do we rectify it right away, and do we wait till the customer complains?
Exactly.
And 9 out of 10 times I'll say we get to it before the customer complains, and the only time that the customer complains is because we just weren't made aware of it.
Yeah.
And we're being made aware of it. And to your credit, at S&P, we've never had any issues where customers were not thoroughly satisfied. And speaking to Chris, the CEO there, his thing is customer experience. That's when we first sat down with him, that's what he said. That was his focus. That's our focus. So we're very much compatible when it comes to that. In the past, we've dealt with other installers where they made that claim, but when the stuff hit the fan, that's not what happened, and left us many times in a lurch. But because we're customer focused, we ended up paying for it out of our own pocket to make sure that the customer's taken care of. That's how much we care about it.
Yeah. And I think to add to that, it's funny because like you said, almost any company with half a brain is going to say we're customer focused, we're customer driven. But the reality is, especially in construction or in the solar industry, is once the project's complete, most companies pray that you never call them back.
Right.
For us, we're a little bit different, as you know. We actually face the customer for the first 5 years. When a customer purchases a system with us, with our dealer groups, for the next 5 years, we visit their home once annually when we do an inspection on the system. While we're there, we also clean the panels as well, so it boosts production a little bit for customers. But the most important part is we're able to fish out any of those issues that customers may not see, and we're able to fix those every single year. We face our customers.
Right.
Leads to a better customer experience, better reviews, more referrals, which is great for everybody in the industry. But really, all that it stems from having a customer-focused organization, and then a happy customer as a result of all that.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I would agree with that. So in this relationship that we have, we bring the customer, we sell the system, you guys do the install. We work very tightly together to make sure that the customer has that experience. Why then would a client or a customer, homeowner, want to do business with a dealer? What advantages? I could list a bunch, but sure. I want to hear from you on what you think the main advantages or a couple of those advantages by going with somebody like us.
Yeah. So I think there's a big distinction between a dealer organization and then maybe just a dealer group. And so, the office I'm sitting in here is at Stellar Solar. This is a dealer organization. So this is someone that you can look up online, you meaning a customer, can look up online, can see, 5-star reviews, 50, 80 reviews with this one company. They've been in business for 5 years. You have a brick and mortar place to walk into. What that means for the customer is it's an added layer of protection for the customer. Because let's be honest, contractors are going out of business left and right. No one's promised tomorrow in business things can turn sideways. And when that's happened in the past with good dealer organizations, and as I understand it, you guys are similar with this, is I know for a fact you guys have actually gone out and made it right with a customer and helped pay for things to get fixed that weren't completed. I know this because there were installers that did your jobs originally before you were associated with us, and now we're out servicing that system.
Right.
What Orlando and Stellar have done is they've actually cut us the check for that service, not leaving the customer high and dry. So it really adds that layer of protection for the customer, knowing that they have essentially two organizations backing their system. You have the install organization that on paper holds all the warranties. Then you've got this sales organization called a dealership that is there to assist you long term if the install company has fallen short in some way or another. Sadly, some do. So we hope that that's never the case with us.
Right.
That you never have to make it right with us, but it does add a layer of protection for the customer that I think needs to not be ignored from customers, that's for sure. But a big focus that I want to hit on with this is there's a big difference between working with a dealer group for customers where it's just one guy and he has about 2 or 3 of his buddies that sell solar with him, and they don't have a brick and mortar, and there's plenty of great reps out there that do that and they do great work. But having a dealer organization where it's an actual organization licensed with the state, where it's a brick and mortar building, the customer can come down, knock on a door. It holds people more accountable, and you as the customer know that you're working with a reputable organization. So you have those 2 layers of protection. I think there's a big distinction there in who you work with.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. And much to what you just stated, we've experienced that because we have dealt with companies that have gone out of business, and you kind of touched on it before. So I want to talk about the landscape of solar today. The way I describe it to a lot of people is it was the second gold rush in California.
Yeah.
If you had a contractor's license, you opened up a solar division. Didn't know what the heck you were doing, but you did it anyway. Went out, made a lot of promises, couldn't keep them,
Yep.
and were not thinking of that side of their business for longevity.
Yeah.
It was a hit and run. I know a lot of people, a lot of sales reps who were flying around in their personal planes and that they bought from just door knocking, but hit and run, right? We were never going to be that. That's kind of how we came into business. Was we were seeing too much of that happening, and that just wasn't settling with me as a solar customer who ended up going into solar sales on the side and saw what was going on in the industry. Chris, CEO, not too long ago in one of our meetings that we had that you guys do with all your dealers, which I love, talked about over the last 2 or 3 years, 60% of those companies have gone out of business.
Yeah.
Right. Can you speak a little bit to that landscape and kind of the unfortunate things that have happened? Because everybody's heard the horror stories.
Yeah.
And so how do we who are still in it and to do right by our customers, how do we still stay in the industry?
Yeah. So we're a great thing to add to that is we're actually a maintenance company as well. And so we actually adopt what we refer to as, orphaned or abandoned systems. A lot of contractors came into the business over the last 8 years, and, many of them have gone away. What does that leave the customer? Well, it leaves the customer with no workmanship warranty on their system. They now have to pay a separate contractor to come out and fix it and just hope that contractor knows what they're doing with their specific unit. What's great is that we're licensed and certified by almost all of the manufacturing companies out there to do work with them. And so out of the 16,000 customers that we have, only about 8,000 of them, we installed solar on their roof. So when you have the big names like the Peterson Deans, the Infinities, the Cubics, Titan recently, SunPower recently, these names start falling out and start closing their doors, the customers are left holding the bag saying, who can service my system? So a big portion of our revenue actually comes from paying customers of other install companies that had gone out of business that now pay us to service their system. I like to bring that up because that speaks to the longevity of our company, that we're built for long-term service. On our profit and loss statement, a portion of our revenue is coming in from these maintenance agreements that we have with customers that are very well priced. They get discounted servicing and discounted labor costs with us, and we also come out and clean their panels 2 or 3 times a year, depending on the monthly package that they sign up for. Right. So as far as long-term, we're not blind to the fact that one day installing solar panels on roofs is going to almost be a thing in the past, because most people will have already gone solar.
Correct.
Call it 5 years, call it 10 years, 15, whatever. The day will likely come where 80% of rooftops in California, 80% plus, have solar, and we won't be able to survive by just putting panels on people's roofs. So we have to come up with unique ways, and we're already 8 years ahead of everybody else because that's how long our maintenance division's been in business. So we've already accumulated, the infrastructure, the systems, the processes to be able to service at a high level those customers. So I think that kind of speaks to the longevity. But to get back to your question about companies going out of business, recently PG&E, SoCal Edison, SDG&E, basically the big 3 investor-owned utility companies is what we call them. They colluded essentially with the CPUC, and they created this new way of going solar, and it completely changed the industry about 1.5 years ago. They came out with 2 or 3 proposals, and all of them were absolutely terrible for the consumer until they finally settled on the one that they're at now, which some folks would refer to as NEM 3, but it's technically called NBT, or Net Billing Tariff. Right. So essentially what that did is that caused installers to completely change their mindset. They could no longer put just panels on a roof, which was very easy to sell. Now they have to get proficient at offsetting battery sizing and inputting battery sizing with an actual system size. And that kind of gets a little muddy where contractors are doing things, I'd say, the wrong way. But that was a huge shift in the industry. So you referenced the gold rush maybe 7 years ago, and for 5 years it was absolutely that. It was a gold rush. But then a year and a half ago came Armageddon.
Right.
And I'd like to believe that there's going to be another Armageddon as well. So that the first Armageddon was in April of last year in 2023.
Correct.
And that's when they completely changed the rules of how to go solar. Every solar company's sales dipped for the perceivable, next month, because they were trying to figure out how are we going to do this the right way. There were some solar companies that kept selling, and they sold a lot of systems the wrong way. So that leads me to Armageddon number 2. That will likely be coming next summer. We've already seen folks this summer getting utility bills that were sold NEM 3 systems or net billing tariff systems, and their battery sizing just wasn't correct.
Right.
They have this massive solar system. The storage capacity in their battery is not enough, and it leads them to paying a bill in the summertime where they're going to have a payment to the solar company or to the lending company, and they're still paying PG&E pretty high rates. Getting a zero bill in solar is not achievable anymore, and we let customers know that up front. But with proper battery sizing, you can minimize that summer bill to very, very minimally.
Correct.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate that, and again, I'm gonna give kudos to where kudos is due. Most of the install companies, because as a dealer, we kind of consider ourselves like a broker.
Yeah.
We look for the best installer that's given us the best price that we can trust to do the work for our customer, because we are customer focused.
Yeah.
When so many companies just hoped and prayed that quote unquote NEM 3 was not going to come into act, and we're hoping that the legislature here in California was going to shut it down. Governor Newsom was going to shut it down. He talked about it, but never actually made it happen. He just delayed it is all he did, if I remember correctly. And didn't really prepare for that customer with that NEM 3. So you did. Your organization spent a lot of money on a proprietary software that was able to give the customer an idea, because you stated that having a zero bill at the end of the year is not going to happen, the true up, right? And with NEM 3, the true up isn't annually but monthly.
Yeah.
So there's some other nuances that came with that. Can you talk about that software a little bit without? I know it's proprietary. We're not going to give any secrets away, but this is the reason why we were so comfortable and felt, again, so well aligned with SMP, was we weren't giving guesstimates. You don't want to be sitting with a client and their family's making this investment with you and trusting you, and you tell them, I think this is what you're going to have.
Yeah. Sadly, that is the case. That's the conversation at the kitchen table for most reps and almost any rep that's not using this software. It is proprietary software. How it functions is not proprietary. I can speak to that all day long. It's the coding that's really the nuts and bolts of the proprietary. Hey everyone, thanks for stopping by and watching the podcast. I hope you're getting great value out of it, and I know there's some more to come. Real quickly, I wanted to let you know something. We're offering $500 cash back to anybody that references this podcast when they call into either Solar Maintenance Pros or Stellar. Just mention the Stellar podcast. You're going to have to say that to qualify, and we'll go ahead and rebate you $500 at the end of your project. Free, no strings attached, $500 just for going solar. Has to be in the month of November, so get it done. So essentially how it works is we have an API integration to the public utilities, to the investor-owned utilities, the main 3. It's basically a back-end integration to their software. And so what that means in layman's terms is we're able to, with just an account number and a phone number from PG&E, we're able to pull the customer's last 24 months of utility usage. And we're not just getting the monthly information, like if we were to call the solar hotline and get, in month January, you had 700 kilowatt hours. What we're able to get is interval data, which is hour by hour of every single day of their last 24 months.
And the reason for that is because they've changed billing as well, and they've gone from a tier system, which used to be you paid based on how much electricity you used. The more you used, the more you paid. Where now it's time of use. It's not how much you use, it's when you use it during the day. Am I right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And when you use it is tantamount in a NEM3 environment. And with your battery sizing, so it's important that customers understand when they should use their power. With this software, we're able to model out and say, if we add this amount of battery to your system with this amount of production from your solar system based on the given size of it, here's what your estimated bill is going to be, Mr. Customer, at the end as an overall average. And you can click into each month and say, oh, in July, it might be $80. But in October, it looks like it's only going to be about $20. In December, it's going to be $50. And over the course of that, we'll give you a monthly estimate of, say, $600 a year that you'll still pay PG&E. And that's a good deal, because before that, you might have been paying $4,000 a year with PG&E. And if you financed the system, your payments plus that leftover amount with PG&E is going to be significantly less still than what you would have paid PG&E for the entire amount of power at your home.
Right.
And having that software, you're able to actually dial it down and say, cool, this is my estimate based on my historical usage of what I will pay with them. And so you're getting the complete picture. You're not just having someone at the kitchen table sit down and say, you might have a little bit of a bill, not much. Okay, well, what's a little bit and not much? That's relative for every family.
Sure. And for us as a sales organization, being able to go in there with the confidence to be able to tell that, because what ends up happening so many times is, customers are smart. They shop. They do their homework. They understand these things, and they're going to call the national companies to come in and give them a quote. And they'll see our quote, and they'll call the other company, and they'll go, oh, I can lower it. I can beat that by, $1,000. Well, when we compare apples to apples, we find out where they're shorting them is in the battery size, because the smaller the battery size, the lower the price, right? Even though the size of the solar may be exactly the same, it's in the battery. And so with that same software, I'm able to run those scenarios with that smaller battery and show them this is what they're actually telling you. And my question to them is, were they able to tell you this?
Yeah.
And they'll say no.
Mm-hmm.
And so for us, it's a game changer. Like I said, we've dealt with a lot of different install partners, and nobody was prepared like S&P was before NEM3 even hit. And honestly, we used to go against solar maintenance pros or solar negotiators, and we would laugh at the no true up, it's not NO, it's KNOW, right?
Yeah.
And they're just telling you, we would try to spin it as best as we could on the information we had.
Yeah.
And when you and I sat down with Pete and Jason, my son Jason, and you guys showed us this stuff, Jason and I walked into that meeting not wanting to join the competitor. And when we walked out, we were kicking rocks like, crap, we have to do this.
Yeah.
This makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Right? And so we have all the confidence in the world when we sit across the kitchen table that at least what we're offering is the right thing. And again, because of what you guys have done and put in on the back end for your customer and my customer, on each proposal, it states, based on the size of yours, we don't hide it. We say, based on a 11 kilowatt, you need 20 kilowatt hour battery, right? And it states it there. And the crazy thing is, and I appreciate this, you guys won't even allow us to sell a 15 kilowatt hour battery for that size system.
Yeah. There's a distinction between the word requirement and suggestion.
Yes.
And almost all contractors out here, I haven't heard a single one that boasts that they have battery sizing requirements.
Right.
They will have battery sizing suggestions, and their suggestions, as most consumers would assume, are going to be very low. what we've seen as proper battery storage sizing is 1.5 times the system size. 1.5 to 2 times the system size is what the battery needs to be, the battery storage. To give you an example, would be a 10 kilowatt sized system for solar needs to have at least 20 kilowatt hours of battery with us.
Correct.
Up to a 12 kilowatt. Then when you get to a 13 kilowatt hour battery, we require that you do 30 kilowatt hours of storage. So
Right.
that's almost 2.5x. But and our proposals will come in slightly more expensive sometimes because of that fact. But what's funny is the cost of that extra battery, that extra 10 kilowatt hours of battery versus what the customer will save year to year. The customer's paying off that battery within the next 3, 4, sometimes 5 years.
Right.
Which if you can get your money back in 3 to 5 years, that's a great investment. Every financial advisor will say do that.
Right.
And then you're protected long term, because that's not assuming that PG&E is going to raise their rates, which they absolutely will raise their rates over time. It's been reported that that they've already announced raising their rates 26% next year.
Correct.
And then the jury's out after that. So I can tell you, after being in the industry for a while, over the last 5 years, 6 years, 5 years, PG&E rates have literally tripled. Meaning that high tier rate, the most expensive rate was 19 cents 5-6 years ago, and you guys can fact check me on that. It's now, the high usage time is 50 cents plus. So that's almost triple their rates. And so if you're able to lock in your payment today, right now, and get an extra battery storage that offsets that extra power and not have to pull it from PG&E, that puts you in a good situation today, and it puts you in a good situation in 5-10 years from now.
And so again, with the no true up software, this is where we're able to prove we didn't just come up. You guys didn't just come up with those requirements.
Yeah.
Out of the blue. It's based upon data that's been analyzed over and over and over again to give us that exact size of battery that's required minimum. And really, it's a minimum.
Yes.
The requirement is a minimum.
Yes.
If the customer wants more storage space for whatever reason, if they want backup or whatever for the full house, then we could always add more. That requirement means minimum.
Yes.
If I'm correct on that.
Yeah, and we actually, to get prepared, we actually shut down our sales right after NEM 2 ended and it transitioned to NEM 3. We completely did not accept any sales for roughly 5 weeks, 4 or 5 weeks, where again, other contractors were taking in business. We had to have time to put together our processes, our systems, make sure the customer was actually going to be served in the way that we wanted them to be served. And so we ran all the numbers through our software. We utilized that software to come up with these battery sizing requirements. And in some ways, it's I hate to say this, but in some ways, it's not enough battery still. Should be even more battery.
Sure.
But we found a comfortable spot to where if we can save the customer 85% of their bill, 85 or 90% of their bill, and their leftover bill is 10% of what they paid last year, that's a total win.
Right.
Because for that 85 or 90% of their bill, they'll be paying 60% of that by going solar. So kind of a weighted average, the customer ends up saving money. So I think something important as well with the No True Up software to mention is it's not just a quoting tool for in the house for the sales process and really giving that customer a good idea of what to expect. But long term, we actually give the clients access to this software, and they're able to view, pop in and look. It's linked up with their inverter as well as the utility company, and it marries the data together. So they're actually able to see real clear, cut and dry, how much power did I use this day? How much power did I send to the grid? How much power did I produce on my system? And it's all in one easy access place that the customer does get ongoing value from. So it's not just at the point of sale at our presentation, but it's actually long-term for the customer. It's a great tool they can use to monitor it themselves, because at the end of the day, a lot of NEM 3, if we don't want to get too deep in the weeds here, that's fine. But a lot of NEM 3 right here now is when the customer uses power.
Right.
And if they can pull up that app and say, hey, honey, we shouldn't have done the washer and dryer at 9 p.m. last night because the sun was down and we plowed through our battery. So then once our battery is empty and there's no sun up, we're actually paying for power from PG&E.
Right.
Because the credits that we got during the day for overproducing and sending power to the grid is almost nothing.
None. Right.
Like 3 cents, but they're going to charge them 50 cents at nighttime. So you never want to send power to the grid anymore. We call it power escaping to the grid. And so I think a huge concept that customers should understand at this consultation and through their ongoing learning efforts is use the power during the day. Most of the time during the summer, your batteries are going to be fully charged by about 11 o'clock a.m. And so you'll have the rest of that period for the next 4 or 5 hours when the sun is beaming down on your panels. It's almost impossible to use all the power that your system produces.
Correct.
So when the sun is the hottest and you can look on your apps and see my battery's fully charged, now that's the time to start doing the washer and the dryer. That's the time to start running the heavy loads. If you have an electric car and you're able to charge it during the day, that's the time to grab that extra power instead of letting it escape to the grid. Use it on your side of the meter. I always instruct my clients too, with hot tubs or with pools especially, that, you know, during a normal, when you didn't have solar, you'd run your pool starting at, let's say, 11 p.m. and have it end at 7.
Correct.
You're going to run it in the off-peak. Makes total sense. With solar in NEM3, you're going to flip that concept, and you're actually going to start it in the morning time around 7 or 8 when the sun comes up. You're going to have it run for the next 8 hours, whenever that is, and make sure it's not running when the sun is down.
Correct.
If you run your pool in the morning, yes, it will be using power, but your panels are providing the power for that pool pump. And instead of your battery fully charging at 11 a.m., it might take 12 or 1 o'clock to fully charge before you start losing power to the grid. But at least you're using that power from your solar on your side of the meter instead of feeding it back to PG&E for free.
You'd be surprised how many times sitting across the table from a customer that blows their mind. It just, because we've been so conditioned, right? PG&E, we've been the frog that's getting boiled. Just slowly, right? We don't jump out of the pot, and we've been boiled.
Yep.
And so we bought the farm on that, right? We drank the Kool-Aid, whatever term we want to use, but that's kind of how we've all been conditioned. And so I appreciate you touching on that. So many other things I want to touch on, and I know we're running out of time, but one real quick thing I do want to touch on before, the full integration of what we get to offer our customers because of our partnership with you is still on that KTU or no true up is the non-export system.
Yeah.
Okay. You guys added a completely new feature in there, again, using a lot of data to come up with this. Non-export, and to your credit, even though non-export, I believe, started, we were able to do that starting January. Mm-hmm. You guys did not implement it until March, April?
Yeah.
Right. I could. My timing might be off a little bit, but it wasn't right away. We saw a lot of customers go. A lot of installers start to try to sell that, and dealers try to sell that, and sold it incorrectly.
Yes.
So can you just touch just briefly on non-export systems and the reason why we would want to do a non-export as opposed to changing a customer to a NEM3?
Yeah, it's real simple. There are some kind of nuances on how to handle it, but essentially if the customer has a NEM2 system and they got solar, call it 3 to 5 years ago, that's a great situation that they're in. However, they might have a true-up bill of about $2,000 or $3,000. These are prime candidates to be able to do a non-export add-on system, which essentially what that is we install a standalone system that's a battery backup system. We pull out all the loads out of the main panel so that every single load from the house is now being consumed by this new non-export system. By definition, the system is not allowed to export to the grid. So you can't add this system on and have it feed the grid. That would actually trigger NEM3 for not only the new system, but the legacy system, the existing NEM2 system as well.
Correct.
Which we don't want to do in some certain situations. There are some situations where if a customer's had the system for 10 or 15 years
and it's not producing hardly anything,
not producing very well, it'd probably be a decent idea for that customer to consider removing those panels, putting new ones on, going NEM3, and we can give them a really, really good savings in that way. But the non-export add-on works really well for customers 2 to 5 years old. They still have 15 plus years left, call it, under their NEM2 reservation with the utility company. We're able to add on this separate system that will be a backup system. So if power goes out, they are going to have some backup components We oversize the batteries on those systems slightly more than our normal system so that we're capturing as much power as possible. And their legacy NEM 2 system now turns into a credit generating machine where they can use those credits at nighttime because they're still on NEM 2 essentially.
One of the things that I do like is that we are able to offer other services besides solar when it comes to energy savings. One of the things that happens is a lot of times when an older home, the customer may want to go solar, but their roof is not in the condition that is conducive for that system to be up there for any length of time, that if they were to replace it, they'd have to take the system off, pay to have that taken off, redo the roof, and then have the system reinstalled, which can be costly.
Yeah.
So what are the parameters and what is it that we can offer and that we have done with our customers?
Yeah, so we're a licensed C39 roofing company as well, which is super important to have. I don't want to belabor this point much, but it is really important. There are a lot of solar dealers, we can say, that are using roofers outside of the solar company, and they're baking that financing in with the solar company's project. Creates a lot of liability on that solar company. So we don't allow that. We're actually a roofing contractor ourselves. What the benefit to the customer, though, really is that you're getting a licensed company where every single worker, not just 25% or 40% of the workers on your roof, every single one of them has workers' comp. We have all the licensing. We do it the right way. So our proposals are going to come back very aggressive with our roofing costs because we don't have to profit a whole lot of money off of a roofing contract, especially when we're doing the solar with it. Mm-hmm. We're doing kind of two components there. So we can be very aggressive on pricing. We also will never beat Chuck in a truck that is going to hire people under the table, pay them cash, and not report them as workman's comp.
The guy's waiting for a job at Home Depot.
Yeah.
For the day.
I'm sure they do great work, but if one of them slips and falls on the client's home, the client is holding the bag for that person's injury. And that's why you have workman's comp. It's why workman's comp is the number one expense on the line item on a P&L for a roofing company.
Sure.
And if we didn't have to have it, we wouldn't, but we do. And it's a great thing, great layer of protection for the customer. But the most important thing for the customer is knowing that we're going to get the roof done. We're going to get it finalized. We're going to do it the right way, licensed, contracted, bonded, and then we're going to install the solar. All too often, what's happened before with solar installation companies is they get the permits for their solar, they go out to install the system, and they realize, oh, the roof has never been final inspected, and the roofer's already been paid, and now if it's hard to get a hold of that roofer, they don't want to come out and get it finalized, and they don't want to take those last steps that are necessary before you can get solar. It ties up the whole project. The customer is left holding the bag, paying PG&E another month or two while they get it all squared away. For us, it's all in-house. It's all integrated. We know we're going to get it finalized on this day. We can schedule your install 2 days later, and we're ready to rock. So it gives the customer a lot of protection knowing that it's all in-house, one spot. We do clean work. And we also put a 25-year roof penetration warranty on all of our purchased systems, which is very different than any other contractor. If customers, I implore you to read the agreement and ask them what the roof penetration warranty, you'll see a 5 next to that.
I've seen the max I've seen is 10.
10, yeah. So we do 25. We're a roofing company. And, we won't install on bad roofs. There are customers out there that have been installed on wobbly roofs, and the solar company says, yep, you're good to go on the roof because it's not necessary for final inspection for solar. But that solar company may be one of the companies we talked about earlier that goes out of business in 2 or 3 years, and their liabilities are wiped away. So it's not a good situation to do that. You might want to work with a company that will stand their ground and say, sorry, we need to replace this roof, but we'll do it at a great price.
No, I agree, and it's been helpful to us, so we're grateful for that again. So I could sit here talking to you all day long, but again, I just appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Happy to be here.
All right.